Hi there, I'm the Myth Keeper. Welcome back to my channel. Today we're going back to my religion series. I've previously in my religion series done videos about the various ascended types of post-mortal forms, which included angels and devils, and so I'm continuing that series today. I'm talking about the demons of Abaddon. That's demons spelt D-A-E. Some of you in the comments I know have asked me to pronounce that Daemons. I'm not going to. Demons feels like the right way to pronounce that word for me, so that's what I'm going with in this video. In any case, there's some really fun content here. Enjoy. 6 weeks ago, I released my first video in my series on the evil paragon races and the evil demigods. In it, I discussed the denizens of hell, specifically devils, devilkind, and the various devil demigods known as the infernal dukes or the archdevils. This is my second episode in that series, and today we move from hell to Abaddon. Abaddon is the neutral evil-aligned outer plane, and the souls who are sent here are collectively called the Hunted. Post-mortal life for one of the Hunted is typically a frightening and mercifully brief affair. The Hunted appear in a vast, blistered and blackened landscape, devoid of much vegetation, and decorated everywhere with the bones of dead petitioners and murdered demons. Most of the Hunted will serve as food for the demons of that plane, but some elite few will find a certain resilience and inner strength in themselves to stop being one of the Hunted and start being one of the Hunters. Only those of tremendous willpower and determination, the truly committed to survival at any cost, who put themselves and their needs above all others, has any chance to survive in this hostile environment, and those that do succeed in this begin their own transformation. Thus does a new demon of Abaddon come into being, evolved from one of the Hunted petitioners, transformed from a humanoid wasting away to a monstrous creature of ravenous and all-consuming hunger. These demons, also sometimes called life-eaters or soul-eaters, are the native denizens of Abaddon, and they are defined by their all-consuming hunger and their need to grow their power and strength by preying on the weak. It is survival of the fittest, but where the fittest is always the meanest, biggest, hungriest thing in its territory. Additional details on Abaddon can be found in my Outer Planes Guide to the Hells, so I won't dwell on the nature of the plane itself for too long. Suffice it to say that the demons of Abaddon come in many forms, but all are extremely effective hunters, often extremely strong, intelligent, and magically gifted, and among the most savage of the extraplanar entities to dwell in any of the outer planes. In this video, I will cover the most common forms that the Abaddonian demonkind may take. Just as with devils, the demons of Abaddon sometimes grow to such power and influence within their realm that their malign influence starts to spread beyond Abaddon, and they will even accrue mortal worshippers. Such powerful entities are demon demigods, and they are referred to as Daemon Harbingers. Daemon Harbingers are fewer in number than both archdevils of hell and demon lords of the abyss, likely because the demons of Abaddon are so competitive among each other that many are cut down by their betters before they can ascend to this lofty rank. Naturally, however, those that do achieve the status of Harbinger are powerful and terrifying entities indeed, among the cruelest and also the darkest intellects in the multiverse. But there is worse still in Abaddon than the Daemon Harbingers. The realm of Abaddon is carved into 4 separate domains, and each of these realms is ruled over by one of the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse. In this video, I'll also detail the 4 horsemen and their spheres of influence as well. Finally, in addition to the Daemon Harbingers and the horsemen, there are 2 gods that live in Abaddon. One of them I have discussed in great detail in my Infernal God series and elsewhere, especially in my series on Geb and the Undead, and that is Urgathoa, the goddess of undeath, so I won't cover her here. But the other god that dwells in a portion of Abaddon, technically unclaimed by any of the 4 horsemen, is the god Zyphus, which I will touch on at the end of this video, as I haven't talked about him anywhere else. Before I get there, though, let's start by discussing the various breeds of demonkind. Cacodemon. Among the smallest examples of demonkind are the cacodemon. These demons are not evolved hunted petitioners, but rather these embodiments of violence and spite are spawned from eddies of angry and warped souls, churned up in Abaddon's misty fog. Cacodemons constantly hunger for mortal souls and yearn to create suffering. They appear as a flying, gnashing sphere of teeth, fins, and spines. Individually, they pose little threat to seasoned adventurers, but when they collect in large numbers, like schools of piranhas, they can prove overwhelming. Caustodemons. Caustodemons may be proof that the plane of Abaddon itself has a dark sense of humor. After cacodemons, they are the most common demon type in Abaddon, and also, thankfully, among the weakest. They originate from the souls of the Hunted, who actively sought to hasten their own demise, either by attempting suicide or by giving up the fight when encountering their first demon. The irony being that their eagerness to meet their end effectively transformed them into a lesser demonic minion. Despite being a relatively weaker form of demon, they are among the most commonly summoned to the material plane by evil spellcasters, as their supernatural perceptiveness makes them valuable guardians for vaults and other similar locations. Although they are weaker demons particularly easy to bind in service, Chaosted demons are still demons, and constantly search for ways to defy their bindings, eager to tear into the flesh of any mortal summoners. Leucodemons. A rare exception to the rule that all demons are self-serving, leucodemons with their skull-like heads and vulture-like wings are demonic messengers of pestilence and loyal followers of their patron horseman Apollyon. Apollyon and his most loyal servitors form these demons from the evil souls of those who succumb to sickness either in life or as a hunted petitioner in Apollyon's domain, and they strive relentlessly to disseminate diseases throughout the multiverse. Among all demons, leucodemons are the most collaborative, and willingly work alongside each other and those who summon them to mortal realms with the aim of propagating sickness and plague. Their focus lies solely on achieving their end goal of spreading disease. Piscodemons. Piscodemons reside in foul swamps and toxic waterways such as the River Styx, the Bile Sluice, and the Drowning Court of Charon, the Horseman of Death. Descendants of death by poison, piscodemons are even more malicious than the other demons, relishing in slow and excruciating suffering. To a piscodemon, death is merely the topping on a rancid cake, with the true pleasure coming from witnessing, hearing, smelling, and even tasting raw agony. Although they prefer using poisons and venoms as weapons, their savage claws are also more than capable of ripping enemies apart if necessary. They often serve Charon as shrewd battle commanders, but because of their love of pain, they can lose sight of their rank during battles and charge into the fray in disarray, something the enemies of Abaddon are quick to exploit. Melodemons. Melodemons, also called famine demons, are demonic embodiments of death by starvation and thirst, taking pleasure in spreading the same desperation that led to their own demise in mortal life. They spend their time blighting fields, slaughtering livestock, and polluting water supplies. Additionally, they conduct experiments on captives to determine the length of time that creatures can endure without sustenance and the harmful consequences that result from such deprivation. While they will work alongside other demons if it aligns with the will of their master, the Horseman of Famine, they are notorious for their unreliability. Dirgodemons. Dirgodemons resemble walking masses of razor-sharp insect claws attached to equally menacing chitinous limbs. However, few pay attention to their appearance for long, for their gaze alone causes severe visual distortion in those nearby. As victims stare at the Dirgodemon, they experience vicious hallucinations and insatiable urges to harm and consume others. Perhaps the most terrifying assault that Dirgodemons can unleash on their targets is their swarming infestation. They expel a crawling and buzzing swarm of voracious insects that latch onto their victims and devour them alive, while the insects' raspy whispers drive the prey to a frenzy. Unlike other demons, they do not derive pleasure from prolonged deaths. These fiends believe that the faster they can execute a gory demise, the quicker they can move on to their next victim and repeat the cycle of violence. Thanodemons. Thanodemons are all formed from evil souls that managed to make it to old age, and died of entirely natural causes. Of all demonkind, they are the most patient and cunning, and universally they are in service to Charon, the Horseman of Death, frequently serving as boatmen along the River Styx. Black-robed, skeletal figures with eyes like burning coals, Thanodemons ply the Styx on Abaddon, with a familiarity few can match. Thanodemons prove supremely patient, and unlike the majority of their kindred, are willing to deal with other beings, even mortals, should such clients pay their desired price. These demons' ability to teleport and even plane-shift themselves, their skiffs, and their passengers to any of the evil-aligned planes, or even the ethereal and the astral planes, makes for an enticing service. Should their price be met, they transport their fares, but should circumstances change or they feel they have the upper hand, they often demand more, or abandon their fares upon a grim shore. Sordus demons. As the material world changes and new forms of death are introduced, demonkind evolves and changes too. Many worlds, including Galarian, have large cities now that spew toxic chemicals into the air. Thus were born the Sordus demons, or pollution demon. These large corpulent demons are repulsive amalgamations of demonic flesh and raw sewage. Because of their ties to industry and toxic waste, Sordus demons possess remarkable intelligence, and often strive to encourage mortals to develop novel concepts and creations that have the quite intended side effect of causing harm to their environment. Crucidemons. Crucidemons are demons that embody death through torture. Despite their more attractive appearance than their peers, which appears to be crafted from mithril or iron, their true nature is sinister and cruel. Crucidemons take pleasure in inflicting pain and terror upon their prey, particularly with their serrated curved daggers that are attached to their bodies via chains that pierce each wrist. Unlike other demons that quickly consume mortal souls, crucidemons relish in prolonging the agony of their victims. They seek to subject their prey to an eternity of pain and torment, oftentimes causing such suffering that their victims are grateful for the release of death. Engaging a crucidemon in battle is not a task for the faint of heart, as they possess unequaled patience and will continue to pursue those who dare oppose them. Astrodemons. Astrodemons are eerie and reptilian demons that embody death by directly attacking the soul or life force. Their touch numbs the victim and brings about a swift demise. These demons are rarely seen in the material plane, as they spend most of their time hunting the pathways between the living world and the afterlife. Their primary target is migrating souls, which they capture and bring to Abaddon as offerings to their masters. Astrodemons can also be found lurking along the banks of the River of Souls in the astral plane, where they constantly seek new prey. Their actions have earned them the hatred of psychopomps, who are dedicated to ensuring safe passage for souls to their final destination. Some astrodemons have a different role, as assassins who serve the horsemen themselves. These infamous demons are among the most feared and effective killers in the multiverse, and their services are highly prized by those who seek to eliminate powerful foes. Purodemons. Purodemons embody the gruesome nature of war, with their thirst for immense bloodshed and loss of life inflicted on a devastating scale. They are the generals of massive battles, wreaking havoc and destruction on the plains. These giant-beaked demons are adorned in unholy black armor, with weapons piercing their flesh at every opening. These weapons may appear to be wounds to the uninformed, but they are in fact the demon's own vast arsenal, which they collect in their bodies to unnerve their foes. Purodemons can swiftly and easily extract a weapon from their flesh, as if drawing a sword from a sheath. Their tainted blood imbues their weapons with immense power, making them deadly tools of war. Purodemons are also quite strategically minded, and before launching an assault, purodemons meticulously survey the battlefield and strategize, employing creative tactics to ensure victory. Agrodemons. Agrodemons are born from the forged flames of Zuriel, horsemen of war. They are a combination of lion, spider, and demigod. Though, like many of Daemonkind, they can be self-serving, proud, and therefore not fond of working together for extended periods, they do often become leaders of cults, whose aim is to burn down civilization, an idea that is innately in alignment with their personal goals and ambitions. To these sinister creatures of flame and terror, destroying towns and villages is just a distraction. The real pleasure comes from destroying entire nations, especially targeting their agricultural systems, setting fire to their forests and fields, and turning their people into starving raiders. Olethrodemons. The most massive and fearsome of demons, Olethrodemons even inspire fear in their own kind. These beings are believed to be too evil for any single entity to embody, and are instead created from the souls of many individuals harvested together. Some theories suggest that the Olethrodemons are the creations of the Four Horsemen of the Apocalypse, while others propose that they are the creation of an even more mysterious fifth horseman. Regardless of their origins, the existence of Olethrodemons is enough to fill mortals with paralyzing existential terror. These immense creatures stand over 25 feet tall and weigh close to 12,000 pounds. Their powerful muscular bodies are covered by durable plates, and their heads are thronged with dangerous twisted horns. These creatures are truly unlike any other known to humankind, possessing dozens of unblinking glowing eyes above a drooling maw, set above 2 sets of 4 muscular limbs. Just as pit fiend devils clamor for positions as infernal dukes, Olethrodemons can achieve a unique level of power among their kin. These creatures are known as Apocalypse Paragons, and they may gain this level of power by pledging their loyalty to one of the Four Horsemen as a chosen agent of Apocalypse. These advanced Olethrodemons specialize in their patrons' particular methods of annihilation, their abilities evolving to suit the selected method of ruin. Some of these Apocalypse Paragons may be on the cusp of becoming Daemon Harbingers, and some may even have mortal worshippers and be able to grant divine magic as well. The Apocalypse Paragons are not currently named entities in the Pathfinder game, however, so individual Paragons can be created at your own GM's discretion. Daemon Harbingers. Abaddon's Harbingers hold a social status that places them above the Greater Deacons and the Apocalypse Paragons, but below that of the Four Horsemen. These elite beings hold a variety of titles that are often customized to their methods and personal vanity. Despite each Harbinger's allegiance to a specific horseman, they all operate with considerable independence. As favored advisors and servants of their respective horsemen, Harbingers wield sweeping influence among demons, and though they are not always openly subservient to their patron, they almost always act in a way that generally aligns with their patron's universal agenda. Harbingers are known to cultivate their own worship on Abaddon and beyond, and are viewed as saints and intercessors to the Four Horsemen's divinity. They are capable of granting divine magic and boons to their followers as they see fit. However, each Harbinger is also driven by a desire to increase their own power, with the ultimate goal of overthrowing one of the Four Horsemen and taking their seat. This makes them some of the most powerful weapons in the Horsemen's arsenal, but also some of the most persistent threats to their rule. Among the most infamous of the Harbingers are Azderath, known as the Pale Dowager, a thin, almost skeletal figure marked by bite wounds that appear spontaneously on her body. Those who wish to swear fealty to her must eat a portion of a creature killed by magic. She grants her followers secret knowledge of the delicate balance between life and death, as well as mastery over necromancy. Ajids, or Father Flens, looks like a fleshless giant with dozens of razor blades piercing his body. His obedience involves mutilating the corpse of a defeated enemy, and his followers are granted the ability to summon armor made from their own blood to protect them in battle. Anogets, known as the Fated Fangs, rules over a scarlet jungle atop a plateau in War's domain. Her followers are encouraged to foment revolution against peaceful rulers, and she grants her followers mastery over savage beasts, as well as the ability to take the shape of beasts themselves. Arlakramas, the Silent Breath, rules over a domain surrounded by the river Styx, and takes the form of a humanoid made of slowly condensing and evaporating blood and acid. Those who obey her make a prayer over the bodies of those who died of sickness, and her most loyal patrons have the ability to inflict a crushing despair upon their enemies. Brazmoy, the Silent Quill, rules over a domain called the Silent Nation, which lies at the bottom of a glacier in Abaddon. She is a crafty demigoddess and encourages her followers to write one-sided contracts and to betray others to achieve personal advancement. Her boons include the ability to use detect thoughts and charm others. Kixiron, the Furious Thunder, appears as a metallic raven-headed skeleton crackling with electrical discharges. He is a demigod of firearms and galvanic forces. His obedience involves praying atop a hill at night during a thunderstorm, and his boons include the ability to command thunder and lightning. Korosbel, the Silent Saint, rules over a realm of debased temples and takes the form of an athletic six-armed man. Those who obey him must curiously offer a sacrifice to a dead or non-existent god in an abandoned temple. His boons are varied, but include the ability to summon phantasmal killers. Disiad, the Empty Dawn, appears as a rotting primordial lizard, and is associated with natural disasters. His obedience involves meditating on various natural disasters, and his greatest boons include the ability to cause the earth to erupt in lava, or even to call meteors from the sky. Eldiz, the beast behind the dream, looks like an amalgamation of bestial limbs and rules a subterranean realm lit by phosphorescent fungus. Those who obey her are encouraged to plot the brutal murder of any that stand in their way, and her patronage grants supernatural strength and the ability to afflict enemies with confusion and doubt. Falca, the Gaunt Stranger, appears as an unnaturally tall, emaciated man, with a featureless face covered in dozens of childlike hands pressing from within. His realm is a place of childhood terrors, bedrooms, hideouts, kitchens, and playrooms where every perception of safety or protection harbors a hidden potential for terror. Gion, also known as the Dancing Fiend, takes on the form of a monstrous centaur with flaming hooves. He is responsible for training and rewarding Zuriel's mounted forces, and frequently accompanies her armies. Gion encourages his followers to do psychotropic drugs and enter a fugue state in which they must dance around madly to receive his visions. Among his boons to his patrons, he grants them the ability to summon phantom steeds. Hastrikal, the Fires Within, appears as a young woman with greasy, smoky hair. Hastrikal is a patron of arsons, and to obey Hastrikal, one must set an occupied building on fire and watch it burn. Hastrikal's boons include mastery of various kinds of fire magic. Jakarkas, also known as the Collector, governs the slave city of awaiting consumption, the grand marketplace of planar soul trade. Jakarkas takes on the form of a ruler, and he is a patron to slavers and unjust rulers alike. Jakarkas grants his followers the ability to use a commanding voice with ultimate authority. Lavatniel, the Chains in the Cradle, appears as a smiling elderly woman with scorched and skeletal arms. She is a patron goddess of patricide and matricide, and she gives mixed messages to her followers, suggesting both that her followers are right to fear their progenitors, but also that they should seek to replace them. She is often worshipped by those with abusive parents who seek her out to help revenge themselves. Lamolek, the Ascended, takes on the form of a massive golden one-eyed fiend. Lamolek has waged a lengthy conflict against the Divs and has always hoped to use resources gained from this war to advance his own power. He encourages his followers to be both self-serving and self-punishing. Neok, also known as Grandfather Scab, looks like an elderly frost giant whose flesh and bones are carved with runes. In order to follow Neok's most curious observance, one must trick an elderly creature into believing it has forgotten something. Neok's boons include the abilities to alter memories and to defy the natural aging process. Nalmungder, he who waits below the stairs, dwells in a lightless realm snaking below other Harbingers' domains. Nalmungder takes on the form of a shapeless mass of darkness and teeth. To obey Nalmungder, one must meditate in a basement or cellar, and in exchange she grants mastery over fear and darkness. Osolmir, the one true dream, appears as a bloody scourged woman with her mouth stitched shut and hands amputated. She walks on a set of tentacles ending in grasping clawed hands. Osolmir encourages her followers to publicly self-flagellate, and as a boon she grants her followers the ability to share their pain with others. Pavnuri, the Lord of Nothing, is a massive cacodemon, and Abaddon's chief informant. He claims to be able to obtain reports from any world or plane within an hour. Pavnuri asks his followers to whisper a personal secret to a stranger as an act of obedience. In exchange, he grants them secret knowledge and forgotten lore. Rokorolos, Prince of the Racked, a giant, partially rotted elven man wreathed in corroded iron chains, with tentacles for arms. He asks his followers to consume brackish water as an act of loyalty. In exchange, he grants protection from drowning and the ability to take a liquid form. Rapseras, the Scarlet Promise, wears tarnished plate armor and an executioner's hood. Holes in the fabric expose his bestial bloody maw and black, empty eye sockets. His followers are encouraged to keep an accurate accounting of their various hatreds and intolerances, and in exchange for dwelling on their hatred, they are granted physical strength and battle prowess. Slandrace, the Watcher in the Walls, resembles a great scarlet wasp of ashes and blood-stained ice with a pair of long trailing scorpion tails. He enjoys warping souls in the forms of their own obsessions and unrequited loves. He encourages his followers to sleep at night next to the corpse of someone they knew when they were still alive. His granted boons include mastery of scrying and invisibility. Stigidvod the Charnel Child appears as a young human boy with luminous jaundiced eyes. When viewed peripherally or in reflection, he appears as a twisted amalgamation of withered and rotting body parts. He requests his followers to smear themselves in and drink the blood of their enemies. In exchange, he offers supernatural healing and regeneration. Tamidi, the Fungal-Hearted, is served by fungus-wreathed demons and infested petitioners. Her primary body is a cadaverous woman in rusted armor, seated upon a pile of skulls, her exposed flesh bristling with fungal protrusions. She encourages her followers to ritually consume poisoned mushrooms or to feed them to their victims. Her boons include the ability to curse others with various afflictions, such as pox pustules and other contagions. Tresmalvos, the Cistern Queen, appears as a drowned androgynous elf wearing a rusted iron crown with piercing yellow eyes and a monstrous rat's tail, and other ever-shifting features. Her realm is a sprawling warren of sewer tunnels filled with befouled trappings of royalty. Her followers drown and consume rats, and this grants them the ability to summon and command swarms of rats, and take the form of giant rats and other vermin themselves. Uransaf, known as the Creeping Pit, takes the form of a dragon without eyes, who constantly oozes boiling black tar from its mouth. Uransaf long ago lost its own wings, and instead grafted wings from other flying creatures onto its back. To please Uransaf, one must shoot down or otherwise cause a flying creature to plummet to its death. In return, she grants magical wings and flight to her followers. Vorasha the Ophidian, also known as the Lady of Toxicity, is considered one of the most powerful heralds, and a consort of Trelmerixian, the Horseman of Famine. She takes the form of a reptilian demon with draconic scales and a Medusa-like mane of emerald and scarlet serpents. To obey Vorasha, one must consume a diluted dose of poison, and Vorasha will in turn grant her followers immunity to poison and the ability to poison food and drink or afflict an enemy full of toxins with just a touch. Zistade, also known as the Wriggling Wound, parasitizes the bodies of unwilling outsiders, currently using a planetar as its host.
Zystade's realm is a horrifying place full of parasitic fungi, insects, and screaming petitioners fused together. To obey Zystade, one must willingly play host to a parasite, and in return, Zystade grants control over parasitic creatures and the ability to summon swarms. Zagasnar, the Blade Bride, appears as a woman adorned in bridal attire and pierced with numerous bladed weapons. To please Zagasnar, one must repeatedly carve a murdered victim's name into their flesh. In exchange, her followers can magically alter their appearance, and their weapons are always supernaturally sharp. Finally, Zelishkar of the Bitter Flame takes the form of a tiger-shaped figure made of living crimson flame, dressed in black glassy armor. To obey Zelishkar, one must burn living creatures atop a pyre, and in return Zelishkar grants fire mastery. The Four Horsemen. The Four Horsemen are the rulers of Abaddon, and between them, it is said, they will usher in the end of all worlds in time. The Four Horsemen are Apollyon, the Horseman of Pestilence. Apollyon is known as the Prince of Plagues, who takes on the form of a giant with a snarling ram head, and hides his pustule and bruise-covered body with a cloak tailored from the skins of a dozen angels that he's flayed alive. He feeds on the angel souls to empower a series of bows called the Ushers of the Black Rain. His mount Septicius has a golden crown with Apollyon symbol, and is covered in symptoms of a horrific infection. Apollyon's rise to power began after the previous Horseman of Pestilence, Ersinius, went missing during a foray into the Maelstrom. Apollyon rose to power by slaughtering his way through his rival claimants. Apollyon focuses on creating new diseases and plagues, as well as artifacts and magical items intended to corrupt their recipients and cause larger metaphysical infestations. Apollyon sends his minions to the material plane to create and spread ever more horrific and virulent plagues, often granting temporary immunity to his mortal cultists in exchange for using them as carriers and living incubators. He has garnered the most followers among the demon-created Urdefan race, trusting them and unintelligent vermin to spread his plagues far more reliably than other non-demon supplicants and carriers. Apollyon's mortal proxies serve their master's goals, aiding potential allies such as evil druids, cults of Rovagug, the Church of Urgathoa, and especially the Church of Glounder, in attempting to cause the death of wide swaths of mortal life. Charon, the Horseman of Death. Charon, the boatman of the Styx and the Horseman of Death, is the oldest of the Four Horsemen. While it is rumored that he was the original horseman, the first and only Lord of Death, Charon's title is misleading. He specializes in death by old age, making him the most powerful of the four. He is patient and willing to sacrifice immediate gains for guaranteed eventual victory. Charon is also the most secretive of his kind, and holds knowledge of things that have been forgotten. Charon's form is similar to that of his Thanademons, leading scholars to believe that he modeled his servants after himself. Some theorize that he predates all humanoid life, and that his observed form must be a facade maintained by one of his servitors. Others speculate that Charon is the Styx itself, having long ago gained sentience and motives of its own. Charon's mount is the nightmare Chloros, whose touch leeches life and whose gaze forcibly ages victims. Demons in Charon's service range far and wide across Abaddon, hunting souls in his name. Unlike servitors of the other horsemen, Charon's servants often act in understated and subtle ways, yet they harvest just as many souls. Charon makes deals with souls that approach him, with the terms of the deal taking their toll over time. His dealings serve him well, with even his fellows among the four quietly acquiescing to his authority. Charon has bargained with dozens of dying and desperate divinities, archfiends, and entire worlds, offering them aid in return for repayment of souls. Zuriel, the Horseman of War. The title of Horseman of War, among Abaddon's rulers, has been held by more entities than any other title. The current Horseman of War, Zuriel, the Angel of Desolation, has held the title longer than any previous Horseman of War. Zuriel killed the previous horseman at the summit of the Cinder Furnace, which elevated her to her current status. Her great sword, Lamentation of the Faithless, is a corrupted blade that is said to have been an ancient celestial sword, although its exact origins are unknown. Zuriel's appearance is angelic, with ivory skin, golden hair, and blue-black wings, making her appear like a goddess of war. However, up close her eyes constantly bleed, and she has jagged, razor-sharp fangs. Zuriel was once a mortal paladin, excommunicated for heresy, who became a conquering general and empress. Her mount, Grace of Flame, is engulfed in dark flames, and her cults portray her as a promising righteous victory or the purity of a martyr's death. Zuriel often tempts mortal kings and emperors into damning bargains, offering them the aid of her armies to expand their kingdoms or to save them when they face impossible odds. Her armies are the largest and most organized force in Abaddon, and she pits them against each other and other inhabitants of Abaddon rather than against the forces of the other horsemen. Trell Merixian, the Horseman of Famine. Trell Merixian the Black is the youngest and most ambitious of the four, and he is obsessed with the systematic exploration of soul consumption. He believes that he and the horsemen are born of souls and destined to destroy mortality, and destined for even greater things thereafter. Trell Merixian is often portrayed as a thin, starving man with a jackal's head, crystalline teeth, and black, oddly fluid or membranous flesh, but he has no true form. His physical body exists as a protoplasmic slurry of bile, blood, and mucus which flows more than it moves, with an outer membrane keeping some measure of coherency to his appearance. While he maintains the same general figure, he often adopts more than one head, and occasionally allows his metamorphic body to appear even more sodden than it already is. Trell Merixian often takes on characteristics similar to mortals of a given race, occasionally even foregoing his jackal head. Trell Merixian was not originally a melodemon, but rose to power and overthrew his predecessor, the Parasite Queen, and forcibly and permanently altered the form of his deacon caste to resemble lesser versions of himself, integrating within them some of his jackal-like traits. Trell Merixian embodies the concept of starvation and the broader associated concept of wasting, both physical and metaphysical. He also embodies the idea of wasting from cancers and other forms of self-consumption. The physical withering by a hijacked immune system that turns the body in on itself in a downward spiral of corporeal decay. Trell Merixian has inserted a portion of himself into his servitor caste of melodemons, including several of his more powerful demonic vassals among the withered court. Thus his fragmented mind brims with insanity and a multitude of voices, chief among them the voices of his predecessor, mentor, and lover, the Parasite Queen. Despite killing everyone he had ever known in life, someone was there with him at the end of his mortal existence, asking him questions and mocking his success as paltry compared to what awaited him after death, but he cannot remember the Watcher's identity. Finally, let's touch on Zyphus, the only deity apart from Urgathoa to make his domain in Abaddon. Zyphus. Zyphus is the god of accidental deaths, so he is said to be responsible for the deaths of those who perish from accidents, and it's believed that every accidental death adds to his strength, fueling his ambition to overthrow his greatest enemy, Pharasma, the Lady of Graves. Zyphus is known as the Grim Harvestman, and has conflicting feelings towards his followers. He resents them for their mortal lives, but their worship also feeds his ego and advances his goals. Zyphus can be a quiet deity, harboring a simmering rage that slowly builds, until he periodically explodes in outbursts of anger and violence. Zyphus communicates with his followers briefly and tersely, often using abusive language. He instructs them through ruthless actions rather than persuasive speeches, believing that the universe is ruled by chance and that mortal faith in deities is probably misplaced. He is an agent of random chance, not of chaos, and kills indiscriminately, regardless of one's alignment or beliefs. Zyphus seeks only to instill fear and acceptance of death's inevitability. Zyphus appears as a terrifying figure dressed in black robes adorned with bones, with a gaunt, pale face and a distended mouth. He wields a pick made of mortal bones and never leaves tracks when he walks. His portfolio includes accidental deaths, graveyards, and tragedies, and his holy symbol is a pick made of a femur, a human skull, and a large ribcage. Although his faith is widespread, Zyphus only has a relatively small number of followers. Even in large cities, there may only be a handful of worshippers. However, his cult is more populous in Numeria, Galt, and Nidal, where certain conditions such as malfunctioning technology, the constant threat of execution, and a culture of brooding evil and fatalism make his teachings particularly appealing. Zyphus's divine realm is adjacent to Urgathoa's territory in Abaddon. The Pallid Princess makes no claim on him, but she does appreciate that Zyphus's priests often become undead to continue their work. His domain is a vast field of open tombs that mock Pharasma's graveyard of souls. Previously, Zyphus had a domain on the material plane, but unexpectedly the demons of Abaddon set aside a place for him and offered him a permanent home. Despite initial wariness, he accepted the offer, and since then no soul destined for his realm has been devoured by the native demons. Additionally, his clergy uniquely are allowed to travel the River Styx without being attacked. Zyphus's followers are mostly people who have suffered great tragedies or losses, such as the death of a loved one or the loss of a limb in an accident. Rather than finding a way to heal and move on, they allow their pain to fester and turn into anger, bitterness, cynicism, and eventually seek to punish others for their misfortune. They believe that the universe is governed by chance, not by any higher power or plan, and aim to convince others to reject their faith in other deities. Many of Zyphus's followers learned to create traps and stage complicated accidents to kill others in the name of their god. They damned the souls of their victims to Zyphus and his malevolence. However, most do not have the courage to carry out physical harm, so they instead indulge in belittling others' achievements, successes, loves, and victories as meaningless and fleeting. Zyphus's worship services involve percussion, chanting, libations of blood, and the rolling of knucklebone dice. During holidays, cultists may release a prisoner into a nearby dangerous location, betting on how long the victim will survive before being killed by a trap or creature. Zyphus has dictated no official text, but approves of his followers using the letters of harsh truth to guide their actions. The book was created long ago by a Zyphan priest in a trance of automatic writing, and is a collection of revelations about the folly of the gods, the dominance of chance, and how mortals should accept their inevitable and random deaths.
Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed that. In this series coming up, we'll be talking about the demons of the abyss. We will also be talking about some other stranger evil creatures like divs, clipoths, and so on. And then on the other side, we're also going to be talking about azatas and agathians. So stay tuned for all that. If you enjoyed this content today, please be sure to like and subscribe, and I'll see you next time.